President of the NCAA, Charlie Baker, will join us here momentarily. By the way, a judge recently granted approval to a $2.7 billion legal settlement that would transform college sports by allowing schools to pay players. And they're going to probably have a final hearing coming up next year in April. It's convoluted. I don't want to get caught up in all the details here, but former college athletes as far back as 2018 would be able to apply for their share of $2.5 billion set aside for them to recoup money that they could have made from NIL deals, which weren't allowed until 2021. This is last call. It's like the concussion settlement in the NFL. Last call for trying to get your share of the money. There's going to be rev share. There's still going to be NIL. Colleges are going to start paying players pretty soon. You're going to have payment for players. You're still going to have NIL. You're still going to have the transfer portal. So there's a lot going on with college football. And you got the 12-team playoff. And at some point, they'll expand that as well. March Madness, there was talk that are they going to go to 96 schools anytime soon? We bring in Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA. You've been on the job for 18 months now. What's the biggest surprise?
I think the scale and the size of college sports, 500,000 students, 1,100 schools, an incredible amount of competitive opportunity, literally from one end of the country to the other. And I'm a father of two kids who played D3 football, and I'm certainly familiar with the fact that there's a lot of schools playing in the space. But to me, I think that was in some respects, until you actually have to deal with the enormity of the whole thing. Like I said, I wanted to meet with all 97 conferences in my first 100 days. That was a completely idiotic idea. But I managed to get to all of them about 150 days. And I think one of the things we're trying to do here is to try to land this thing in a place where we are acknowledging the differences that exist between, an Alabama and a Colby College,
Okay, but how do you do that? Can you allow, the big programs to secede from the union? Does that make it easier to govern the NCAA how you want to do it?
Well, my goal is to keep I say to people all the time that I want to keep the unhappy family unhappy and together, but happier than they were before. And I think the settlement, which is sort of an unprecedented level of collaboration and cooperation, certainly across D1, which got the vote and support of, basically all the reps from all the communities across D1, is a pretty good example of an opportunity to create what I would describe as a framework that can work for, the power schools and work for the others as well.
How does the election results from last week affect you and your job at the NCAA?
Yeah. I do think the president-elect has demonstrated he's a huge college sports fan. He doesn't just talk about it. He actually goes to the events. He went to the wrestling championship last year. He's been to a bunch of the football bowl games. He's gone to the basketball stuff. I mean, this is somebody who clearly appreciates what college sports is about, and I think that will help too.
Is education playing a big enough role to keep the student athlete at these big time programs?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously for a lot of the kids who play at that level, there's a hope that they'll be able to continue to play that sport professionally when they get out of school. But the percentages that actually play professionally are incredibly small. I mean, incredibly small. Even if you take the very top tier, you're still talking less than 1% that actually end up playing professionally. With a lot of the work that some of those big time programs do now, you have kids getting their degree in 3.5 years because they're spending a lot of time in the summer taking classes, and many of them are starting graduate programs when they play their final year of eligibility. Do I think this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of the student athletes don't want to be employees, because they don't want to confuse this question. They know at the end of the day, it's the degree that's going to launch whatever comes next for most of them. And I think and they want us to focus on that just the same way they do.
He's Charlie Baker, NCAA president. Is the job too big for one person?
I don't think it's too big for one person, but I definitely believe that the work we're doing here to try to create a segmentation to some extent of the way it works is a really important element in this puzzle. And I do think that's going to be, our ability to pull that off is going to be a big part of how the future unfolds. But I think our ability to succeed is going to be driven to some extent by our ability to make it possible for the big schools to be what they are and who they are, and to make sure that the other schools have the ability to be what they are, instead of trying to think about all of them as being the same, because they're not.
Where do you stand on an NFL model for college football conference realignment?
Can you tell me, Dan, sort of what that means?
Let's say I took the top 50 schools,
Yep.
however you wanted to rank them, the top 40, and you actually get back to regional. UCLA and USC should not be traveling cross country. That's silly. Cal should not be doing that cross country. I mean, we know that, right? That's silly. So if you do where you have geographical matchups, just like you do in the NFL, Kansas City's playing Denver and playing Los Angeles, so you just do that. You do little pods all over America. And then you break that down, and then you play one another, and you might get first round buys, host a game, whatever it is. Maybe you have relegation in there. You could really spice this up. Everybody's going to be happy. Everybody's going to make a ton of money. For years, Charlie, I was saying 4 teams. There's so much. You had a winning lottery ticket. All of a sudden, everybody goes, "We're going to 12 teams," and I go, "You won't stay at 12 that long." Because you know how much money is going to be made. Why don't we just get rid of all of that and get 40 schools, divvy them up geographically, and eventually you're going to have a Super Bowl of college football.
I think part of that comes down to whether you think over time there's only going to be 40 schools who should be part of the conversation.
We can make it more. I don't want it to be the NCAA tournament. I don't need 96, but let's say you did 50. Wait, are you going to 96 schools?
No, we're not.
You're not.
The most we'll ever go to is someone 70.
70? Okay.
The calendar is very, very specific. How many games you can slam into that period of time.
Okay.
My point is just that if you just take this year, for example, look at Indiana, right? Nobody would have thought coming into the year that Indiana was going to be 10-0 at this point in time. If you carved it down to a smaller number, Indiana might not be in your 50. Georgia Tech beating Miami over the weekend. To me, what's happening right now in college football in particular is a sense that there are a lot more games that matter week to week than mattered 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't know if that's a function of the transfer portal or the quality of the coaching or what, but it feels to me like there's a lot more competitive opportunity there than there was a few years back. And I'm glad the CFP made the decision to go to 12 teams because, and you may be right. I was on a panel with Nick Saban a few weeks ago, and Nick said that, now that you're 12, people start talking about a bigger number. And he's, that may in fact be where people go. But I kind of appreciate the fact that the folks who oversee the CFP are careful about some of these decisions they make, because once you make them, you can't undo them, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I love an underdog story. We all do. But Army might be in the 12-team playoff. You can get in there, but yep. I just think we're headed towards that. I don't know if it's in 5 years or whenever. It just feels like follow the money. Well,
the thing that's an interesting. I guess I can't really. I need to think about getting the settlement finished, because this is going to be our opportunity to put a working model in place that I think can work for everybody in D1 and preserves kind of the comedy, COMITY, that we need, not just for football, but for the other sports that the NCAA oversees and works with all the schools and conferences on.
And if you need help, I'm here. Okay.
I very much appreciate that, Dan. That's important.
It's a special advisor, 2-hour flight. I can be there. I'm from Ohio. I can go home for the holidays, stop
Where are you from in Ohio?
Outside of Cincinnati, Mason, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah. My daughter went to Miami, and
Okay.
And my son, who played football at Denison, went to Denison. I have a ton of family in Chagrin Falls, which is right outside Cleveland.
I had
So
two
we're
daughters.
big Ohio family.
I had 2 daughters who went to Denison.
Did you really?
Yep. Yeah.
Great. It's a great place. My son got a huge kick out of the fact that he got to rub Woody Hayes' head every day as he went out to practice.
But the statue of Woody Hayes, of course.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. One other thing. I love that you're trying to take prop bets out of college football. Like that stuff makes me nervous.
Me too. And the amount of abuse that shows up online that's directed at kids, you can tell a lot of it is about prop betting. And we've had kids literally say, I had a really good game. Our team won. I played well. And I got just an avalanche of grief coming at me on social media because I, quote, didn't deliver on the prop bet. I don't ever want kids thinking about that way when they're playing a game. It's
great to talk to you. We've been trying to get somebody from the office for years now just to do this. Just let people know. These are questions we have. And, just glad that you got Wi-Fi there, or apparently that was the holdup with previous presidents or something.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we get together sometime early in the basketball season to talk about the basketball season? Because that's I love football. I got 2 kids that played it, but I was a basketball player, and I'm pretty excited to be here for that.
And once again, we're not going to 96 anytime soon for March Madness.
No, we're not.
But we're going to go into 70.
We'll get in. I think the committees have some work to do here, but I think there's room to go to something like 72 or 76. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Hey, great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us. Good luck, Charlie. Okay.
Take care.
All right. So we're going to 72 teams, add 4, maybe a little bit more. All right. Made a little news there with the president. See, he should do more of these interviews because it always felt like with the NCAA, there was somebody named Mark Emmert. We never had him on. It was like Kaiser Sose.
Yeah.
I don't know if he exists. And they weren't, there wasn't any transparency. I like that he came on and able to at least ask some questions to him. Yes, Todd.
He seemed very personable. It wasn't contentious. He was aware that he had to ask some less than comfortable questions, and I thought he was pretty forthcoming.
Well, thank you, Todd.
You're welcome. Good job with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, you're the one that kept calling the NCAA, so thanks.
Fine. Hold on. How about Wednesday?